It's in you. You possess the power. Just go hard. I need some motivation. Every day I try a little harder, but my dedication. Keep my head way, way above the water. Crowding myself when I yell at the wall. Begging to run, but I needed to crawl. I see the finish line up ahead, trying to get traction from all of this tread. I am a king, I am a queen. I am more than the people can see. I am strong when I'm needing to be. Vulnerability's nothing to me. You can try, but I'm unshakable. My successes is never debatable. I'm chameleon, I'm so interchangeable. Here's to you and all that you are capable.
You gotta go hard, better get it. You gotta go hard, better get it. You better go hard, better get it. Better get it. You gotta go hard, better get it. You gotta go hard, better get it. You gotta go hard, better get it. Better get it. You gotta go hard, better get it. You gotta go hard, better get it. You better go hard, better get it. Better get it. You gotta go hard, better get it. You gotta go hard, better get it. You gotta go hard, better get it. Better get it.
Life, if well lived, is long enough. Seneca. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. What's up, guys? Great to have you back to the show. If you're new, this is the podcast. This is the show that's going to help you step up and be the leader that your team needs. And that's why we named it the show. That's why it's got the name that it's got. Be the leader. If you guys are new to the show, this is where we're going to help you guys out with your mindset, success, fitness. I mean, we try to dive into all aspects of life to help elevate you, take you to victory, to include your leadership. You know, in order to lead others, you first got to lead yourself. So we talk a lot about personal development here. And over the years, we take you guys along the journey with like what we're going through in life and everything like that, so that, it's relatable and you guys understand that we're like, you listen to a lot of these podcasts and a lot of times everybody comes off as just like, they're just the authority, and what we try to do is just take you guys through the journey of what we're going through in life, because I tell my clients, I'm a player coach. Like, I'm in the game too. You know what I mean? So that's what we're here to do. I'm Jeramiah Solven. I'm the main host here, and then I am joined by my lovely wife and co-host Charyce Solven.
The hostess with the mostest. I'm back.
Yes, guys. We're excited because we're in a studio, and a lot of our shows have been just online on the they've been just audios. So really excited to be doing more video content for you guys. And if you're new to the show itself and you're watching this on YouTube, we have like 180 something episodes of this podcast, which you can find on all the other platforms that do just audio. So
this is 185.
This is 185?
Yes.
All right, 185. So over the years, I haven't dropped them. We just didn't focus a lot on YouTube. We just did the audio version. So a lot of stuff back there that you guys can check out. We've changed a lot since the very, very beginning. My old co-host was Justin Phillips. And anyways, you guys can check that out if you're new. But point is we've been doing this a minute. Excited to get on YouTube a little bit more. And depending on how this goes, we'll keep doing the YouTube channel. But if you're not subscribed, make sure you go check out the show on like Apple or whatever. Click and subscribe or whatnot. But so why I have you, I don't want you guys to waste any time. And I know you're trying to figure out if this is a show you should listen to, if this is going to be worth your time. So to kick this off, normally Charyce has the subject and she has questions for me that we're going to dive into. Today's a little bit different where, I have something I want to talk about and I want us to go into. So the theme of today's show is basically a couple's journey. And what I want to do is share with you guys our journey from Iraq, because we met in Iraq as soldiers, to entrepreneurs. And what I really want to do too is not just share the story, but help you guys overcome the pitfalls and challenges and struggles that come from being in a long distance relationship, being a high achiever, and being at those times where like you hit rock bottom and you have nobody to turn to. You don't know, like it's almost like all hope is lost and you're in that state. And maybe you're even with somebody when you're in that state and you don't know what to do, or you're struggling that bad. It just feels like there's nobody out there for you. So, we have both been in that spot before. We have been in a state of struggle in our life. We've also transitioned a lot in our life. Okay. So we were basic soldiers, like privates in the military, when we first came into the military, which meant everybody was in charge of us. And then we evolved. My wife became an NCO, non-commissioned officer, a leader. I became an officer. I became a leader. She separated from the service. We'll get into the story, but bottom line is now we're entrepreneurs living life on our timeline, not the government's. And we transitioned from soldiers to leaders, officer to NCO to entrepreneurs. And now we're just living this life and building. We're building brick by brick, you know. I currently run a coaching company. That's my primary business. And I help high achievers with their mindset, with their life success, with their business success. And my wife is in the business as well, who helps in those subjects. And then she also has her own dog training business called Conquer Canine.
Yes.
So it's all underneath the same umbrella, Conquer Academy and Conquer Canine. And we're like yin and yang, you know, in life. So that's what you guys have ahead of you. This is a show where we're going to take you through the journey, but also help you guys out that are in a bad spot. You're in a state of struggle, a state of just maybe feeling alone, or in transition. You're trying to transition from one stage of life into the next, and you're trying to figure out how to do it and make the jump and do it effortlessly and with success. So we're going to share those pitfalls. What do you think, Charyce?
I'm excited for today's episode.
Yeah, why are you
Yeah.
excited?
I like talking about us. We've come a long way.
Yeah,
I do.
Your favorite subject? That sounds it almost sounded narcissistic. I'm playing.
I mean, we've been through a lot and we've survived, which is more than, you know, most relationships can say.
No, I know. You're
It's almost 18 years that we've been together, and most people don't make it through the first couple weeks.
I know, you're just proud.
Yeah.
You're proud. And so am I. I'm proud of us too, because like we met in 2007, guys. 2007, we met in Iraq. I was PFC Solven.
I was Specialist Phillips.
Specialist Phillips.
Yeah.
Way back when. And man, crazy taking me back just looking at you. Let's just dive in, because I was going to go into some life updates and stuff. But what were you, okay, to draw the contrast, what were you driving when you were in Iraq? Did you have a car?
I didn't get my first car until I got to Maryland, which was after we got back from Iraq and I left Germany.
How old were you?
I was 21 when I got my first car. I didn't have a car before that.
You guys hear that? So she was
My first car was a Saturn Ion.
carless at 20 years old, got her first car at 21 years old. It was a Saturn Ion. Jeramiah Solven, his first car, I hustled my ass off in high school, and I did summer jobs. I bought a 1994 Toyota Celica. That was my first car. And what do you have now, Charyce?
I have a Lamborghini Urus.
Yes. What color is it?
It's white with a red interior.
And what about the windows?
It's all blacked out.
Yeah.
Which honestly, last night coming back from from the shop, it was dark.
Oh man,
because
you gotta
we
be
have
careful.
the front windshield tinted as well, which
Yeah,
is
totally
And I have
illegal.
astigmatism, so the whole thing was just real scary coming
Yeah.
back. But I was good though.
Yeah. No, I blacked the windows out like super black to where they're illegal.
Yeah.
And
He hasn't gotten pulled over in it yet, but I have.
yeah, she has. And we still got the Jeep. We got a Jeep Cherokee Altitude, which that's our go-to dog vehicle now. But that was one of our levels up back when I was still on active duty in the military. That was a big purchase for us.
Yeah, it was.
That
was my upgrade because I had just totaled my
Your Ion.
my Ion in Hawaii before we moved to Washington. Then we moved to Washington, and you got me the Jeep.
Yeah. I went from my first car, Toyota Celica, and then after that, the next car was I went to Iraq. I came back. I bought a 350Z. I thought that was hot shit. We have a lot of memories in that.
Yeah.
And then that's a little sports car, And then I got rid of that. Got the Titan. I had a black Nissan Titan. Got rid of that. Bought a Mercedes-Benz C-Class, which was just basically like a coupe and four-door coupe. I thought that thing felt like $200,000 in it, but it was
Luxury.
it was a $30,000 car. And now we got the Urus. I got a Benz and AMG. And anyways, that's the transformation, guys. And we live about a mile from the beach here in Lighthouse Point. But okay, so point is I'm trying to draw the contrast for where we're at. And we work for ourselves. We've got a few different streams of income between the two of us, individually we have different streams of income. But the primary business that we both join forces on is Conquer Academy, my coaching academy. So let's take them through the journey. So we met, again, guys, we're going to talk about struggles, transitioning in life. So we met in Iraq. And do you remember the first time you saw me?
Oh yeah, I absolutely do.
Was it the bus story?
It's the bus story.
Okay, so go ahead, tell them the bus story.
So I was not the nicest person when I was younger. I was kind of a bitch, and I was a smart ass, and I liked poking people for fun, basically. I didn't know Jeremiah, and we lived on the same little area on the base. So there's these buses that take you from, the different living areas on base to the PX, to the gym, to just takes you around the base so that you don't have to walk, because it was a large base. And I got on the bus one day near our living area, and he's sitting with his then girlfriend.
Yep.
But he has this look on his face, and he's just like scowling, and it's hot. Everybody's cranky. We got to wear body armor. We're carrying our weapons with us. It's just miserable. It's 115, 20 degrees, just miserable. And there's no AC on these buses either. So I get on the bus, and he's sitting there with his face all screwed up. And I look at him and I say, "You look sneaky." And he looks at me a little bit bewildered and is like, "What the fuck did you just say to me?"
Yeah.
And I said, "You look sneaky." And I looked at his girlfriend. I said, "I like your glasses." Turned around and sat down, and I could hear him talking a little bit of crap behind me. But at that point, the moment had passed. I wasn't thinking about him anymore, and I went on about my life.
Yeah.
And then he happened to come into my job because I worked in the PSB, which is the Personal Services Battalion. And everybody used to come to us to get their records updated, to do their ID cards, to do finance, all of that fun human resources type stuff. And we ended up chatting for a while, and we exchanged email addresses because we didn't have cell phones then in Iraq.
Yeah, in Iraq you didn't have cell phones. We had a landline that you could get some really shitty or some internet with. But if you were to call home, you were to use a payphone, and you had a calling card. And then if you were to talk to people over there, you primarily used email to get a hold of each other. But when I met Charyce, it was we were in this base fob spiker into Crit. It was a little bit larger of a base, and you could do physical training outside on the roads and run around and stuff, and do your push-ups, your sit-ups, your running, all that stuff. And the first time I saw her was when she was in her PT uniform and she was running down the road. And it was like the most awkward run I've ever seen in my life, to be completely honest. It was like she had the T-Rex arms, her legs were really long, and she looked just like she was struggling. Like she looked like she was running effortless, right? Her body did, but her face was in excruciating pain.
I hated it. I hated it.
And I just remember being like, but it almost felt like a unicorn running by. I was like, oh, I just saw hair, I saw legs and T-Rex arms, and then I fell in love. So I was like, I knew I had to eventually talk to her, and I was on this base, but it wasn't really appropriate to go around trying to pick up on chicks in Iraq. It was like you're there for a duty,
Yeah, people didn't care though.
No, they did 100%. But I remember it was when I first got there, and so anyways, I was still getting my footing in Iraq, and I just made a mental note, I gotta friggin' find that girl and talk to her. And I went about my business, and then I think I saw it maybe once more doing PT after that, but I was always on my way to go do something. And then you came into the bus, you said a comment or whatever, and I hadn't talked to you until that point, but I had noticed you, and I had already been kind of working my way to figuring out how to talk to you and shit. But long story short is that once the icebreaker happened, once you got on the bus and we started talking, we kind of kicked it off, and then I ended up finding out where you worked, I think is what it was. I think through that bus ride trip, I found out that you worked at the BSB or something like that. Or maybe you got off at the BSB. Either way, somehow I found out I might have just made a visit. Oh, actually that was it. So I made a visit to go get my ID card or my ID. I was getting a new ID card or updating my promotion points.
It was your ID card because I was working in the ID card section.
Right. So this was a separate trip, and I was with my platoon sergeant, one of my leaders, and I go in there, and all of a sudden there's this girl that I had my eye on, plus she had talked shit to me, and I found myself at her seat getting my ID card replaced or updated.
Yeah, I think it was replaced.
replaced. And so that was like a 30-minute task that ended up taking like hours. It took like 2 hours, I think, that day, maybe an hour and a half. I was with my platoon sergeant, so I remember I had to like, I was on his timeline. So I ended up like getting back in the truck, and I walked out without getting your email. And I remember talking to my platoon sergeant, and I was like, that girl, I'm interested in her, something like that. I was like, I'm going to get her info at some time. I think she was really flirting with me. And he was like, he was talking shit. He was like, you won't do it, or said something along those lines. And so I just got out of the fucking truck, and I went back in there, and I asked you for it, and I got it. And that's what started the emails. So long story short is that basically through a bunch of correspondence, we were emailing each other back and forth.
He'd come up to the job and hang out with me on my breaks, and we'd chit chat for a while.
I literally would still steal the military tactical vehicles and drive them up to her work, or later on after we started dating, we would take those together and go drive off and like have talks and go spend time out in the woods, or not in the desert together, staring at the stars and shit, doing stuff we weren't supposed to be doing out there. But you know, that's how it all started. And you're not supposed to drive a military vehicle alone, but I would risk it, and I would just go out there and go chat with her.
Gotta risk it for the biscuit.
Risk it for the biscuit. And you know, we really kicked it off through conversation, connecting through one's struggles, you know, sharing about our home life. And we didn't see each other in civilian clothes really until we got back to the States. We both had civilian clothes but we never really wore them over there. And then, but anyways, so I want to, you know, I'm kind of telling the story, but I want to make sure I get into some actual, you know, nuggets that can help the audience as well. So this was a 15-month deployment, and, you know, I guess before we go on to the next chapter, what are some moments that you remember from that deployment with me and you?
I think the moments that stood out the most from that deployment are probably, the first one that comes to mind is the first time you told me you loved me.
Yep.
That was in the back of that bus. I still remember that.
Yeah, we were in the back of I don't know how we had access to that.
I think that was my unit's bus, and it was behind my job.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so we walked up, and it was a late night. We were spending time with one another, and we snuck into her work bus, which is a little tiny, like, 25 passenger bus.
Yeah.
And we were sitting there bullshitting, and that's when I opened up and I told her I loved her. It was after about, I don't know how long. Like, how long?
We weren't even dating at that point, I don't think.
Really?
No, we didn't.
Damn, I just said I love you.
Yeah, according to you, we didn't start dating until the January after we got back.
We weren't official until we got back in January.
We were talking.
Oh yeah.
But it wasn't official.
Yeah, we weren't boyfriend and girlfriend labels, but we were dating when we were in Iraq. Yeah. And when I told you I loved you, we were dating.
Yeah.
But we weren't boyfriend and girlfriend official Facebook.
No, it wasn't official. But that stands out to me. Sitting on top of those, what were they? Those pyramid things? What were those bunkers?
They're bunkers, yeah.
Yeah, sitting on top of the bunkers, talking and looking at the stars. And I think the biggest thing that stands out is the fact that we were such good friends before we started dating.
Yeah.
And part of that was because I wasn't going to give you any play.
She wasn't giving it up.
I kept, oh yeah, totally, I'm going to come hang out with you. I'd ghost. But we built such a good friendship. I feel like that worked in our favor because we built such a good friendship. We got to know each other, and it wasn't predicated on, you know, something physical or something romantic. It was genuine interest between the both of us.
Yeah. I was an engineer at the time. Charyce was in human resources. So I basically helped repair damaged roads. Like, so if the enemy blew up, you know, put an IED in the road and it made a crater in the road, my team would go out there and fix that. I also traveled around to different bases and did some construction out on different bases, did a lot of helicopter rides, a lot of convoys. And then we'd have like supplementary missions too, where, you know, I helped transport, you know, prisoners, you know, and then, you know, that Iraq deployment taught me so much about life and what was important, you know. I got to see people being handcuffed, stuffed into vehicles. I saw my life was almost taken from me. Like the vehicle in front of me on a convoy hit a roadside bomb, and we had one wounded from that, and it could have killed any of us. we had an officer in my unit that was killed. 15 months in Iraq, away from everybody and away from everything, and it was chaos over there. It was in 2006 to 2007, but then we met in the middle of all that chaos. And what did Iraq teach you about, like, what was the value of deploying for you?
The value of deploying for me was learning that regardless of my circumstances, because I went through a lot in Iraq. I dealt with a leader who was consistently sexually harassing me because I wouldn't have sex with him, and being blocked from promotion while I was downrange. And I learned that I could still be successful despite the challenges that I faced, and despite being uncomfortable, despite being, pretty unhappy while I was downrange. I was able to find joy, and I was able to find peace, and I was able to find my purpose.
Why were you
there.
Unhappy over there? I mean, other than it's fucking Iraq.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
it's Iraq, and I was dealing with things. I was getting out of a really bad relationship. I was dealing with some estrangement issues with my family, and not really feeling connected with them, and then being downrange and feeling so alone was really hard.
Yeah, that's important, because everybody goes through that shit. Like, it's to some level, Iraq was hard for me because you think about this, we're 20 years old, man, and we both left home. I left home at 18. Mm-hmm. And when you ship off for the military, like, at the time, you don't really know how you just kind of like, it's like being in a toxic relationship. Like, when you're in the military, there's a lot of good moments, but there's a lot of bad moments, and it's hard in a lot of different ways. Like, maybe not physically hard, but sometimes mentally hard. Mm-hmm. And sometimes it's lonely. Sometimes you're confused about life, like what your purpose is in life. You're trying to figure out your place in the world too. Like, I joined the military out of desperation, just want to change my life, and that's kind of what you joined the military out of.
Yeah.
The value for Iraq for me, the value in deploying at 20 years old. I turned 20 and 21 in Iraq. 15 months, guys. The value of deploying for myself was that I got very, very clear about what was important to me in life. That deployment made me never want to quit on myself again. Because I was at this base, Camp Warhorse, and while I was there, it was a smaller fob, and I'm coming back from the gym, and I get a report that there was a guy, he was offloading mortar rounds from a gator, almost like a golf cart, and somehow he either dropped one or something happened when he was doing it, and the whole thing exploded and killed him. And it was like right next to me. Like, I was coming back from the gym. I heard the explosion. And little moments like that where people were losing their life happened pretty frequently, I remember I was driving down the street by Ramadi. And I drive, and we go to this one outstation. We go to this, I think it was a checkpoint. We go to this checkpoint. I forget what we were doing exactly, but I think we just, we had to link up with somebody. And then after we did the link up, we turned around and went back to the base. And when we turned around within 15 minutes of this route that we had driven down, we basically button hooked and went back. And in that 15-minute window, as we're driving back, there was a vehicle up in smoke, in flames, burning in the middle of the road. And it was complete just metal and fire. And we turned, looked at it, and it wasn't our mission, so we just went right back into the base. So Iraq for me was, deploying at 20 years old for me was it felt like a bunch of near-death misses. Near-death experiences, like, holy shit, I missed that one. Holy shit, I missed that one. Holy shit, I missed that one. And it was really fucked up because I wasn't in a position to be on the offensive. I wasn't like in a position, my job wasn't to go kick in doors and, go after the bad guys that the United States had labeled bad guys. my job was to go fix the collateral damage and to be an asset, to be in a support role. And what was hard for me was I felt helpless the whole time. I felt like I wasn't making a big enough impact, in that I was just a sitting duck the whole time I was in Iraq, you know. And I remember having those thoughts. And I remember thinking about my parents back home, my brothers back home, my family. And as I was reflecting on all the chaos that was happening in Iraq, I knew I had nothing to lose with my life. Like, in other words, I knew I was going to live life going after what I wanted. Because had I got out of there alive, I was going to be lucky. And there was nothing to lose. There's nothing to lose in life when you risk it, because you can die at any moment. And people are so scared to fail. But whatever you decide to pursue, if the worst case is just failure, you have nothing to lose, because failure is not even a consideration. Failure is not even, it shouldn't even be a concern, man. It's meaningless. Your life is the only thing that fucking matters.
And there's no little clock that tells you when your time is going to be up. So if you're not utilizing your time to the best of its value, then you're wasting it. You're wasting it. And if you don't try, you'll never know. The worst thing that can happen in your life is that you are told no. You're 100%. Told no. And then you can just adjust and find another way around that no to get to your yes.
100%.
But you're never going to get to that yes unless you get through those no's first.
How was adjusting back to regular life when you got back from Iraq?
I was very cynical. I felt alienated. I felt lonely. I felt like, you know, I'd be in a grocery store, or I'd be walking somewhere, and I'd look at people and feel like, you know, they don't understand what I'm going through. They don't understand the things that I'm feeling, the things that I'm struggling to reconcile. And it just made, because I have a lot of trauma in my past, and I feel like my deployment exacerbated a lot of that. And trying to make things make sense for myself was really hard.
When you go through a traumatic experience like a deployment, and you come back and you're trying to adjust, and you have other traumas in your life, it's like going to therapy for the first time. You're unpacking a bunch of shit that you've been carrying around. You're creating massive awareness around your life. What you're reflecting on your past, you're reflecting on where you just been, you're reflecting on where you're going to go next. Meanwhile, you're stressed the fuck out because you're adjusting to a whole different type of life. And it's like opening up Pandora's box when you go from one traumatic experience to another traumatic experience, and it can be really difficult. And, you know, at the time, you don't think it's that big of a deal. Like when I came back from Iraq, I went through the same thing. Like I was trying to adjust, and I'm diagnosed with adjustment disorder. Like I have it, you know, point is that it's hard at the time, but you don't even know that like you're not aware that it's hard. But it's fucking hard. Like you don't know, like I didn't know when I came back from Iraq, I was standing in line at like Walmart or something like that, and I was in the same mental state. I was pissed the fuck off at everybody around me, but I was stressed. There's a lot of people around me, and I was stressed. I didn't know that I was stressed out. I was just reacting and getting angry at everybody around me. I was completely unaware at what my problem was, and I was lashing out at everybody around me. And it was hard, but I wasn't aware enough to know that it was because I was adjusting to civilian life that made that hard for me. I thought that I had every right being upset about the things that I was upset about. I didn't know that I was stressed out from trying to readjust and reacclimate to the United States and civilian life. So when we came back, I mean, I can relate to that 100%, is that one of the hardest parts about getting back to the United States is that you go from it's a very simple life in when you're deployed. You only do a couple of things. It might be chaotic, but it's very simple. You're going to eat at certain times. You're going to do your mission. You're going to, work out, and that's it. And then the rest of the world is going to keep moving. Mm-hmm. And then when you get back, cars are fucking driving 1,000,000 miles an hour. You got your cell phone now, and people are texting you. You got to manage your bills. And these sound like small things, but these are huge things when you're going from a life of being deployed, coming back, and where you've had everything kind of taken care of for you. And then you come back and you have these little responsibilities that start stacking up, and you're not used to that level of stress. So your stress for life, your threshold, your stress tolerance for life is very, very low. You have a high stress tolerance for risky shit, but you have a low stress tolerance for life challenges. So you're in this state of constant turmoil of just trying to navigate life's complexities while also figuring out who you are and what's important to you and what you're going to do next with your life,
And at that point, our brains weren't even fully developed yet. We're still figuring out who we were.
Couldn't even legally drink before I left.
No, I could technically.
You could?
I was in Germany.
Yeah.
You can drink it on base at 18 there.
Yeah, so I came back and I went to Kentucky. That's where I was stationed at. And I made a decision when I was deployed that I was going to do the Army's Green to Gold program, become an officer. And then Charyce and I, we got back to the States. I went back to the States. She went to Germany. And then she came out to visit me for Christmas. And she dropped fucking $1,500 last minute for a ticket out to California. That was funny as shit. So here's the deal. We returned back to our home duty stations. I went to Kentucky, she went to Germany, and then we basically had Christmas right around the same time. So we went on leave. And I remember we didn't plan to link up over Christmas and the New Year. So she went to her family's, I went to mine. And in the middle of it, we're talking and texting to each other. And I get the idea. I'm like, you should just come out here. And so she last minute just decides, fuck it, I'm going to buy a ticket. And I'm flying out to California. And that ticket was not cheap. She spent $1,500 to fly out to California, stay with me for the holidays.
And this is $1,500, 2007 bucks.
Yeah, 2007 bucks. It was a whole month of pay for us.
Yeah.
And so tax-free pay, So she comes out, and then I get pneumonia. I lose 15 pounds in 2 days. I go to the ER, and then her flight's she's supposed to go back to Indiana or something like that to get back
to Colorado.
Oh, you're gonna go back to Colorado. That's where your family was.
Yeah, my mom was in Colorado.
And then we're it was the day before her flight, and we're we should just bump the flight one more day. So I think you spent another $1,000 to move the flight another day.
Wasn't that trip the same trip that we went down to Mexico?
Or
was that a separate trip? I'm trying to remember.
That was a separate trip.
Okay.
That was a separate one because we did that was a different time because this was in.
Yeah.
It was a different
That's
time.
Right. Yeah.
But okay, I mean we're getting kind of micro in the whole story, but the whole part is really funny. So getting back to the States, we were adjusting. We were after you went back after Christmas and New Year's, we decided, hey, let's make this official, and we became boyfriend girlfriend. Mm-hmm. Guys, I don't want to write a whole novel on our story, so I think what I'm going to do is kind of fast forward through some things, and then let's just reflect on some of the things that we learned along the way. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So what ends up happening is once we get back in 2007, 2008, we're dating. I'm going green to gold. She's basically in Germany. Her unit gets shut down. She goes to Maryland, so she goes back to the United States. I'm going green to gold. I hit some Army schools along the way. I go to Air Assault School. And then she gets orders to go to a different duty station while I get picked up for the Army's Green to Gold program, which means I'm going to go back to school in California, earn my commission. It's going to take me 3 years to do that, maybe 4 years. She moves basically to Arizona. Now we're doing long distance from Arizona and California. I'm in school in ROTC. She's in Arizona. We're finding ways to see each other in between. And then we end up getting married, saying screw it. Oh, she moves in. She gets out of the Army. She moves in with me in California in 2010, I think it was.
Yeah, I got out in 2010, and we got married in 2012.
Yeah, and that was abrupt. My wife wasn't expecting to get out. She got medically retired. We're going to kind of forego that for right now and maybe to come back to it. But she had some mental health related stuff that she got diagnosed with, which forced her out early, which was very hard, very fucking hard for her. And the blessing was that she moved in with me. And then we ended up in 2012, we got married. I finished my infantry pipeline. We went to Georgia together. I did the infantry school. Then we went to Hawaii. And then we went to Washington together. I got assigned to the 75th Ranger Regiment. Meanwhile, she's working her dog training business, going to school. She closes like a $10,000 dog training deal. That was a huge thing. And then basically we move to Colorado. We're away from each other for like basically 3 years. And I'm with the 75th. I deploy. We're away from each other. I go to another military school. I'm away from her in Georgia while she's in Washington doing the military school. And then we move to Colorado, but I deploy again. So I'm away from her for like almost 3 years. Yeah. Then I come back from that Afghanistan deployment and I run 100 miles. Well, actually they sent me back to Kentucky. I got sent to Kentucky to basically train cadets. Right after that deployment, I had been away for 2 years, which was freaking painful for me. I was like, I'm finally back with my wife. And then they're like, we're going to send you to Kentucky and she can't come. I'm like, you motherfuckers, dude. You fucking pieces of shit. And it was an oversight. So anyways, go to Kentucky, come back, run 100 miles, decide it's time for me to separate from service, and then become entrepreneurs. And we've been building ever since.
Yes.
Okay. What did I miss that we should hit on before we give them some lessons learned from times that we struggled?
I think that pretty much covers everything. I think an interesting, a little tidbit that I'd like to add is when we got married, we actually, I would consider it an elopement because we had already decided we were going to get married. We were engaged, and I didn't necessarily want a wedding, so we got married in a Starbucks in LA by an officiant. So we spent like I think $30 to get married. Yeah. I learned a hard lesson about marriage when we got married, and that's that weddings aren't really for you. They're for everybody else. So make sure you tell everybody else that you're getting married. Yeah. Because I didn't tell everybody, and people got fucking pissed. That was a huge mistake. I didn't realize the big deal at the time. I was like, we're just going to get married. Just kind of do it. But then my grandpa was like, he didn't even invite us. And I'm like, I wasn't even thinking about it. I'm like, I didn't want to like bother you. You have your life going on. Yeah. Like I personally I'm not a big fan of weddings for myself because I don't like to be the center of attention. It makes me really uncomfortable.
Yeah. That was kind of cool though. We had Zoom. We used Zoom, and we let your mom Zoom in to the wedding.
Well, that was the ceremony.
Yeah, that was after. Sorry, that was after.
Which is when you got commissioned the same day.
Right. So we did the certificate in Starbucks, and then months later, like about
a month later,
we did a ceremony in my backyard, and we had her mom on Zoom. And anyways, okay. So times of struggle, obviously, and transition, right? Through our journey together, what were the top maybe 2 times where you were really struggling?
The top 2 times where I really struggled were probably when I first got out of the military. That was so hard for me. That was really difficult, both mentally and emotionally. That was just something that I really struggled with, and it took me a while to find my footing after that.
Why did you struggle with it?
I was expecting to be a career soldier. I wanted to eventually either go warrant or go officer. Or if not that, I wanted to, climb the ranks as an enlisted soldier. I wanted to lead people. I wanted to be an example. And I wanted to help people. I didn't necessarily like my career field in the military, but I loved that I was directly impacting soldiers' careers and impacting their lives. That made me feel really good about what I did. And I love taking care of people. So that was something that was hard for me, losing that and not expecting to lose it at such a young age and being thrust out into the world, not knowing how I wanted to proceed, not knowing how I was going to translate the things that I had done in the military to my life as a civilian, trying to integrate with people my age who were still in college. And, we partied a lot, but my heart was never really in it. I've never been a big partier. That whole social aspect was really difficult for me. And figuring out what I wanted to do with myself when I got out, and pretty much just losing my entire identity as an adult was so hard. So hard.
That subject right there is something that high achievers go through, people go through, and I want to shed some. That's a huge struggle for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Losing your identity is a huge struggle for a lot of people. Okay. To somebody that is transitioning from one career, one profession, one type of life to another, who feels like they're losing their identity. They feel like they don't know who the fuck they are anymore, because who they thought they were was everything over here in this other life. What advice do you have to them to rediscover themselves?
The advice I would have liked to have heard when I was going through that. Take the risk. Take the risk. Nothing is gained without risk. You don't learn anything unless you take risks.
What risk?
The risk of trying. It doesn't matter what it is, as long as you're doing something. Put in the effort. Go forward. Be bold.
But how do they find themselves? You know what I mean? Like, how do they find their identity? Because that's the thing that got stripped away.
Mm-hmm. Finding my identity came through a process of elimination, trial and error. When I first got out, I went to school for veterinary science, and I always wanted to do something with animals, but I didn't know what, and I automatically defaulted to veterinarian. While I was in school, I realized that I am not interested in the clinical side of it. I do not want to work with sick dogs and cats and animals, and it was just too emotionally taxing for me, and I didn't want to do that. So I switched to business, and then while I was going to school for business, I started my dog training business, which ended up really being my calling. And if I wouldn't have tried and said no to, the veterinary science, if I hadn't, lost my career as a soldier, I never would have found something that brought me so much joy if I hadn't taken those risks.
I think that's solid. I think if you guys are struggling with your identity, you're going from one career, one life to another, and you're trying to rediscover yourself. What Charyce is saying is try on your new life. Try on a bunch of new lives. And also go back to like when you were a kid and rediscover some of the things that you loved when you were a kid. And you won't know who you are until you try on a bunch of different identities and you try on a bunch of different lives, and then you can discover who you are. Yeah,
you don't know what's going to fit until you put it on, until you take the risk, until you move forward boldly in confidence in yourself. And yeah, you might fall on your face, you might slip on your ass. That's okay. Those falls are what help you learn about who you are and how you handle situations. Those failures for me are what brought me out of being in a fixed mindset. And put me into a growth mindset. I realized that I am not limited to just the things that I know right now. Yeah. I can become more. I can grow. I can be better. I can flourish. And it doesn't have to be in any specific preordained area.
Damn, that's good. I'm trying to think for myself, like, what's an area that I struggled with? Top areas that I struggle with were, okay, I'll tell you guys this, man. The number one of the top struggles in my life was, how do I say this? Realizing that, like, fuck, how do I even say this? I mean, there's been two significant struggles in my life. The first one is like the self-doubt struggle, right? Mm-hmm. I think that's a big one that I battled my entire life as a kid, all the way to now. The second one, which I can dive into, the self-doubt. I think everybody can relate to that. Mm-hmm. But the second one is one that I think is unique to high achievers. And the second the next struggle, one of the biggest struggles in my life was realizing that achievements didn't make me feel good. That just because I achieved doesn't mean I was going to be happy. And one of the biggest things that I struggled with was figuring out how to be happy without achievement. You know, I was a guy that was validating himself through accolades and who didn't feel good about himself on the inside. I was in absolute unalignment with my life. Like, I was a guy that has achieved so much in the military. Like, I had changed myself dramatically, going from a shy kid, little town, to infantry officer, platoon leader in the Rangers, commander. And one of the hardest times in my life was when I found myself putting my face in my hands, tears rolling down my face, grabbing a gun, putting it to my head, and then grabbing the bottle of whiskey with my other hand and deciding which one I was going to use. And I sat like that for probably a good 15 minutes, pressing the pistol up against my temple, bringing it back down, taking a swig of the whiskey, crying over the top of both of them. And the thing that caused that struggle was that I had been chasing achievement in my life, and I hadn't been working on my life. And I hadn't been working on myself. I thought I was basically the guy that tried to out-train a bad diet. I was going to work real fucking hard whenever I put the uniform on. And then when I took that thing off and I was by myself, I was going to drink until I got buzzed or black out. And I was going to feel like shit about it the next day when I woke up. But then I was going to do the absolute best that I could when I had the uniform on to make myself feel better. I was a shell of a person, you know? Mm-hmm. And at the same time, I had a big heart inside of me. So the hardest thing, one of the top struggles in my life was learning that achievement doesn't cause fulfillment. Achievement won't make you happy with yourself. You should do both. You should achieve and be happy with you. But I only learned that lesson through rock bottom. Yeah. You know, a lot of people try to avoid rock bottom, you know, but rock bottom isn't a bad thing. Rock bottom is actually where you change. Rock bottom is the place where you get to take massive accountability for your life. It's the only place that you can really stop. You'll stop and pause and look in the mirror and be like, how the fuck did this happen? Because if you're like me, you can fail and mess up and you're going to have all these failures in your life. But if you never hit rock bottom, you'll keep being delusional about why the failures are taking place. You'll convince yourself it's something else other than you that's causing you to fail.
Rock bottom for me was realizing that no one was going to save me from myself. You know, that the same time period where you were at your rock bottom, I was at mine too. And, you know, I was drinking a fifth of whiskey a day. I'd come home from, because I had my business, so I'd work with my private clients. I also worked in a dog training facility and I taught classes there. And I'd come home and the first thing I would do is I would drink. I would get fucking hammered and I'd pass out. Just miserable. I hated myself. I wanted to die. And just that whole experience, you know, and just being so disgusted with who I was when I looked at the mirror. I couldn't even look at myself. Realizing that nobody was going to save me from me. was a hard lesson. Growing up, I had a lot of times when the people who were supposed to protect me failed to do so, and failed to advocate for me, and failed to protect me from real dangers. And I've always had to do that for myself. And realizing as an adult that no matter what, I'm still the only one who can fix me was a hard lesson.
Nobody's going to take better care of you than you guys. And to kind of put this some context to this is that in this period, Charyce and I are both talking about the same season of life. We're talking about a time where we so we had been married, and then we spent some time apart, spent almost 3 years apart.
Mm-hmm. And this was in the middle of that.
This was in the middle of that. So this is around 2016. So I do an Afghanistan deployment with the Rangers in 2016. I come back. I go to Georgia at the captain's career course for another 12 months or so. It was like 9 to 12 months from start to, around there. And then I come back to Washington, and then I go to another military unit, which is in Colorado. We moved to Colorado, and I deployed to Afghanistan. And so out of that, I got back from Afghanistan, was home for a couple months, and then went right back to Kentucky, and I was gone for months again. And in that period is what we're talking about, where we were both having a very, very fucking hard time. And we basically had a life where Charyce was finding her place, finding her new identity. She had gotten out of the military, in 2010, and 6 years she was kind of trying on different professions and figuring out what she was going to do with her life. And she had found dog training, and then here I was chasing accolade after accolade, and I was searching for the next special assignment, and I was hungry to go back overseas. I was the guy that I didn't want to be in garrison. I just wanted to be deployed. I was the guy that did not feel right sitting back in the States. I was hungry for being deployed. I didn't even want to be in the States. I couldn't relate to people. I couldn't relate to anybody. And not only that, but I was bottling up all of my problems. And so the only thing that made me feel good, like I was whole, was being overseas. It's where I felt the most free. And so I was chasing this rainbow, this feeling of completion, and I was using deployments to as the outcome. And so as I'm going for achievements and she's trying to find her identity, we're together and we're married, but we both aren't really sure what's going on with us at a deep level. We don't have awareness around what's actually going on. We just feel the pain. And instead of confronting the pain, we turn to drinking, we turn to isolation, we turn to dealing with our problems on our own. And that just puts distance between us, tremendous distance between us. I remember being in a state of despair. I was sleeping during this period, I was sleeping on a bullet mattress that cost me $50. And every day I woke up, that thing was partially deflated. And I had some sheets on it that those sheets would come off as I was sleeping through the night. But I remember thinking, I don't want to bother her with what I'm going through.
And I was thinking the same exact thing. I'm going through this, but he has enough to worry about. Figure your shit out.
How many of you guys go through that with the people in your life? You don't want to bother them with your problems. But what are you saying when you don't bother somebody with your problems?
You're saying that you don't trust them enough to handle those problems with care.
And you're saying that they're not as strong as you tell them that they are. You see them as weak. People are more resilient than you think. People want your problems, especially the loved ones. They want to hear your problems. They want to say, listen, I got you. And here's what I'm going through. But that requires you to drop the mask and be honest. The world is full of fucking lies, you guys. Think about how many people appease you when you talk to them. They compliment you. If you don't, they see you they haven't seen you in a long time, and they see you and they tell you you're looking good and you don't. They praise you when you don't deserve to be praised. They tell you that they're doing well when they're not. The world is full of fucking lies. And real love isn't lying to somebody's face. Real love is being open and honest about what you're fucking going through. And neither one of us were really truly loving each other because we were lying to each other. Mm. So the way we got through that, difficult time of couples, of us being in complete isolation, being at rock bottom. Time heals most wounds, and luckily time passed, and as we got back together, we worked through it by communicating and everything.
Yeah.
But
I think that time frame was a huge transition in our communication, the way we communicated with one another.
What did you learn about yourself during that difficult time?
I learned that rock bottom always gets deeper. I learned that it gets deeper unless you do something about it.
Damn, that's fucking deep. Because that's true.
You always think it's the worst, that you're at the worst point that you can be, and then bam, you get hit with something else. And because you're not fortifying yourself, because you're not putting in the effort to grow, because you're not taking care of yourself internally, be that mentally, emotionally, spiritually, you just keep digging that hole deeper and digging that hole deeper and making it that much more difficult for you to climb out.
Yeah. Fuck, that's good. What I learned about rock bottom was this. Rock bottom isn't a bad moment. It's where you fucking change. When I had that gun to my head, I had the whiskey in my hand, and I almost ended it that night, I made a choice not to. And I turned to personal development to get myself on track. I started reading books. I started working on goals. I started, working on myself. And I put down the drink for the first time, and I made a commitment to work through that. It took me some time, but I got through it. And it was where I truly changed. I got in complete alignment. Like, the fastest path to success is always alignment. And I wasn't living in alignment. You're not going to be successful in life if you're living two fucking lives. You're not going to be successful in life if just because you put the uniform on, you're doing good, and when you take it off, you're a shit show. It's not going to happen. So, yeah, it's like rock bottom is where you get real honest with yourself and you actually decide to change. Everybody, I think, needs to hit that spot. So moving forward, all right, we hit some deep shit. I would say, let's go this route. What's your advice for somebody that is at rock bottom? What do they do to get themselves on track? You're saying ownership.
Yes, be really honest. If you feel like you're getting to the bottom of that pit and you're really struggling, the first thing you should do is sit with yourself and really assess what it is that's making you feel that way and why. Because when you figure out what it is, that gives you the power to change it. You can't change something you're not aware of. You don't know what you don't know. And until you sit and you really reflect and you take accountability and you take responsibility for where you're at, you're not going to be able to climb out. You can't build that ladder if you don't have the tools.
What did do you think that like that rock bottom spot prepared you for more for your life now, like for success now? What did you take away from that it's helping you now?
Rock bottom taught me and showed me that I am so much stronger than I give myself credit for. Yeah. And I don't have to be a victim of my circumstances. I don't have to succumb to my mental health. I struggle with bipolar disorder and anxiety and PTSD. And, those are things I deal with every day, even now. But then I was not in a place to really understand. I hadn't self-actualized at that point. But learning about myself gave me everything that I needed to be successful in spite of, and not be a victim of the things that I was going through. And now I apply that to my life now by taking risks, by living fully, by being transparent. I've improved my communication. I've grown tremendously in my self-love. I still struggle with a lot of things, but I'm not stuck in the struggle anymore. It's just something I deal with.
Yeah. One of the things that I learned about rock bottom is that the thing that'll save you is discipline. For me to get moving again when I was at rock bottom, I defaulted to creating good habits for myself. Drop the drink, early wake up, read, journal, go hit a workout, and then just keep that process, build that fundamental process for my day. And my routine, I started working on my routine back in 2013, and my routine became a lifeline. You know, I was already 4 years in or so to personal development, but when I was at fucking rock bottom, I turned to personal development to pull myself out of rock bottom. And what I learned was that those fundamental tasks, those fundamental habits that I created back when I first wanted to change my life, waking up, being disciplined with my wake up time, giving some gratitude, reflecting, studying, putting some good positive information inside of my mind, those fundamental habits saved my fucking life.
I think that the fact that you said that is really cool, because I teach the same thing to my dog training clients, you know, especially the ones who have reactive dogs. I make sure that they teach their dog the basics, and their dog is rock solid at the basics, because when they are in a stressful situation that the dog would ordinarily get reactive in, if they have those basics down pat, whether that be attention engagement, like the basic positions, very, very simple stuff that's not hard to teach your dog. If they have those very simple habits in place and the dog is getting stressed out, they can ask for one of those habits, and it's easy for the dog to default to something that it knows, something that it's done over and over, something that's familiar, something that instills confidence and they've had positive feedback from, as opposed to focusing on this thing that they want to be reactive towards.
How do you teach them how to install good habits?
I teach them that they have to be very consistent with their training. It has to happen every day. Training is not a one and done thing, you know, and I stress that with my clients. Even when I was doing board and trains, when I did my take home lessons, you know, I'd spend 2 to 4 hours with my students, teaching them how to teach their dog, teaching them the things that I know so that they could continue the training. Because if they don't continue the training, it's like learning to ride a bike when you're a kid. Sure, you might master it and you might be great at it until you're 15, 16 and you stop riding bikes. Then I tried to get on a bike a couple years ago and I almost busted my ass because I wasn't in the habit. I didn't have that muscle memory anymore. I didn't have those default habits that I could, revert to. And teaching people how to reinforce and how to make things a good experience and how to be consistent is a huge part of getting through reactivity. And of course, there's desensitization and everything else, but you can't even work on the desensitization unless you get those first few things in place.
Yeah. I mean, I've had to deal with myself, like train myself like you're training those dogs.
Yeah.
But, I guess I want to give them a tip for habit building from my lens as well. Guys, when it comes to habits, if you build the right habits, those habits will save your life. Okay, they saved mine. When you don't have any hope for your life, like where your life could go, what it could turn into, the thing that you can control, like you obviously can't control the future in that scenario, but the thing that you can control is your habits. You can control your wake up time. Habits give you a lifeline when things are hard. That's what they did for me. It was like, I ran 100 miles. How do you complete a 100-mile race? One fucking foot in front of the other, one at a time. You don't try to complete the whole 100 miles. That's impossible. So when you're in a bad situation, your life is not going your way, you're in a state of struggle, the best thing that you can do is control what you can control, which is your habits. Mm-hmm. Okay?
And that one step in front of the other is so, so essential when you're pulling yourself out of something. Because when you're in a state of turmoil, when you're at rock bottom, when you're really struggling, it's hard to look ahead and see where you want to be. But you can look down and look at those next couple steps in front of you and be like, okay, well, yeah, if I just take one more step, if I just move a little bit further, I'll be a little bit closer. Yeah. Don't even focus on the goal. Focus on taking that next step.
Yeah. We're probably gonna have to come back to this same subject and teach more on it. But what I want to hit on before we close it up is transitioning and building a life that you love. Okay, so after you guys get through rock bottom and you get your habits dialed in, right? Like I said, the things that I focused on was personal development, a wake-up time that I respected, journaling, and I'm going to reflect. I'm also going to get focused on my goals, and I'm going to create a path and something to aim for. And then I'm going to do the reading and reflection. I'm going to get good information inside of my mind because my mind is poison. My mind is telling me I'm a piece of shit. My mind is telling me that I suck. My mind is telling me that I'm a failure. So I'm going to flood my mind with positive information that helps me develop a positive mindset. I've been doing this for over 10 years, over 10 years, guys. And I'm telling you that if you are in a bad spot, those habits will save your fucking life because they saved mine. Now, once you get on track, you start working through the habits, right? It takes you a little bit of time. You get some momentum going. You're going to start feeling good. You're going to start feeling confident again. You're going to have a good self-image. You're going to get in probably good shape because you got good habits. And then the next thing that's going to happen is you're going to get to a state of like, okay, shit, well, what's next? All right? It's like now fast forward, Charyce and I we've pulled ourselves out of the ruts that we were in, out of the struggle. We're back home together, sleeping in the same bed, under the same roof, talking about what we're going to do next with our life. And I say, hey, man, I'm going to freaking get out of the Army and I'm going to, build this coaching company that I've been working on for the last, year or whatever. And so we put our heads together and we start communicating and we start talking about the vision. And what I want to share with them is now we moved from Colorado to Florida and we have this dream life right now. We really do. We have a dream fucking life. Like we have difficulties, don't get me wrong, guys, but like crazy shit that you guys wouldn't even fucking imagine. Like, oh my God. But the point is that we do have a great life that we built, and the good comes with the bad comes with the good. So as our life has gone up with the good, some of the bad has come up too. But
it's just different problems,
different levels, different devils, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So, but I wouldn't trade this life for anything, man. I wouldn't settle for any other life. Like this is the fucking life, right? That we wanted. So when it comes to building a life that you love, obviously they need to become the person that they want to be. They need to try on different occupations, different things. Try on things before you decide to wear them or something like that?
Well, you don't know if something's going to fit unless you try it on.
Yeah. And so when it comes to transitioning and building that life that you want, what do you think is like one thing that somebody can do to set themselves up for success to build a life that they want? To build their dream life?
If someone wants to build their dream life, and they want to set themselves up for success, I think that the biggest thing that they need to do is invest in themselves, invest in their education, invest in their personal development, invest in themselves spiritually, and be willing to endure the fear, to endure the discomfort. It's not going to be easy, but once you understand that, it really does become easy.
Yeah. I'll tell you guys this, I've transitioned several times, junior soldier to infantry officer, to ranger to entrepreneur, and to this life that we have now. I'll tell you guys the number one thing, maybe the top three things that'll help you transition to a life you love versus one that you settle for is number one, decide who you're going to be. Don't settle for who you become. Number two, plan your life with a vision and your day by the clock. So create a vision for your life and then stick to a firm schedule to create that life. Align your habits and your actions. And number three, don't do it yourself. Surround yourself. Don't be an I'm going to do it myself. Build a dream team. Surround yourself with like all the advisors in your life, all the council members that could help you create the life that you want, and equip yourself with a personal task force to help you accomplish your mission. That's what I did. When I was in Afghanistan, I drafted out exactly the lifestyle that I wanted. And then here's a bonus tip for you guys to really create the life that you want. Instead of like planning your life, plan your lifestyle and put your life in the lifestyle. Like a lot of people try to do the opposite. They make a plan and then they try to fucking shove life and their lifestyle in there. But what winners do is they design their lifestyle first and then they plug their life in. So that's what I did. I got a mentor and he laid it out for me, and now I teach it to my clients as well. But it's one, what is the lifestyle that you guys want? Start with that. And I guess a bonus tip. A little exercise that you guys can do that'll help you out is write out a Christmas list of everything that you want to be, do, and have in life. Everything you want to be. I want to be a husband. I want to be an entrepreneur. Everything you want to do. I want to climb Pikes Peak Mountain. I want to start a company. Everything you want to have. I want to have my freaking dream home, 10,000 square foot mansion, whatever the fuck it is for you guys. I want to have this car. I want to have a family. I want to have whatever. Be, do, have. Okay? List all that stuff out. Pick your 4 top things that you want from that list. Turn them into goals. Those become your milestones and your waypoints. Break them down into 12, 6, 3, and 1 month goals. That becomes your roadmap for you to change your fucking life. All right? Rewatch this, play it again, and listen to what I just said and do it, because that's exactly what I did to change my life. My mentor taught me that. He was trained by Zig Ziglar. Shout out to Coach Chris Patterson. Love the guy to death.
He's a gem.
And but the biggest thing that I did to change my life is I focused on those aspects that I just gave you guys. So don't be one of these people that procrastinates and puts the thing off till later. If you're not going to do it right now, you're not going to do it right later. So put something into motion to make some traction here. All right. Guys, we got to wrap it up. I wanted to cover more relationship stuff, but looks like that's all we have time for. Is there anything else that you want to give them before we close it up?
Don't be afraid of change. Change is inevitable, and when you stop changing, you die. A spiritual death. You might not die physically for a long time, but if you're not constantly working on yourself, if you're not constantly in the pursuit of excellence within your own being, you're going to die, and you're going to be miserable, and you're going to get stuck. And just keep working. Keep working on yourself. It's worth it.
I'll just come back with the last thing, one of the most important things I said in this episode, which is if you're rock bottom's not a bad moment. Rock bottom is where you change. So congratulations. Hey, love you guys, and hope you enjoyed the show. If you did find value in it, please just share it with a friend. Share it to your Facebook. Text it to somebody. Social media. Do us a solid. Share it out there. And until next time, be the leader.
It's in you. You possess the power. Just go hard. I need some motivation. Every day I try a little harder, but my dedication. Keep my head way, way above the water. Grinding myself when I yell at the wall. Begging to run, but I needed to crawl. I see the finish line up ahead, trying to get traction from all of this tread. I am a king, I am a queen. I am more than the people can see. I am strong when I'm needing to be. Vulnerability's nothing to me. You can try, but I'm unshakable. My successes is never debatable. I'm chameleon, I'm so interchangeable. Here's to you and all that you are capable.
You gotta go hard, better get it.